The second team I want to talk about is, let's go with the Suns, and I'm going to rope some Heat stuff into this as well. The Suns have made their first move. They've acquired Nick Richards, which, by the way, Nick Richards was awesome in their first game offensively. Had like 20 and 11, 21 and 11 maybe. Was really, really good. Looked like exactly what they were hoping for, I think. Having said that, I don't think he's like the long-term solution for them either. He has games like this. He is just a bit inconsistent at the end of the day. And defensively, like, there are teams that can really take advantage of him.
It was also against the Pistons. Like, he just who struggled defending ball screen, especially one big on the Pistons. So like, he took advantage of that.
Yeah. If that was, if there's ever been a game that was a sign of what to do with Jalen Duren in the offseason,
you can go watch the video on the Motor City Hoops Substack where I broke all of it down with the lack of hand activity and the opening of hips and all of it in ball screen coverages.
Yeah, unfortunately true. Okay. But the Suns here are in a really interesting predicament because it does seem like their goal here is Jimmy Butler, right? And to do that, they have to find a taker for Bradley Beal. There have been reports sort of teams willing to take Bradley Beal. Like, there was one earlier today, I think, that like the Bucks are willing to entertain this. The Bulls could be another interesting team that I've brought up to some people that, like, if you're the Bulls and you could potentially get like an extra pick, would you entertain taking Bradley Beal? I think that that's like kind of an interesting situation. But ultimately, what my worry is here for the Suns is, let's say that they also have the Nurkic thing to figure out, which, like, we'll talk about that in a second. Let's say that the Jimmy thing can't happen because they can't find a taker for Bradley Beal. And honestly, Bradley Beal has $160 million over 3 years, including this year, on his contract. I think it's going to be really, really hard.
And a no trade clause.
And a no trade clause. So he has to find a place that he's willing to go while also like that team being willing to take his deal. It's going to be very, very difficult. Now, here's the other piece of it. The Suns only have one asset really now because they can't aggregate in trades. They're so far over into the second apron that they have no way to actually like get out of the second apron through trades. Is there, I guess where I'm going with this is they have one asset in this 2031 first rounder that they can trade. If you're acquiring Jimmy Butler, Miami is going to want that asset. But if you're trading Bradley Beal, the team that takes Beal is also going to want that asset.
Yeah.
That to me is what makes any situation here exceptionally complicated. And I think, like, again, like we've talked about, like the structure of trades and things like that. I would be really interested to know if like the NBA will allow, the Suns to, for instance, trade Oso, who's on a minimum contract, in a separate deal to the same team that acquires Bradley Beal. Like, could Oso be your, benefit for taking on Beal? Could Oso be the guy that Miami takes, right? I don't know the answer to how they would rule on that, but every team can take a minimum contract as a separate deal. So you can theoretically trade a minimum contract anywhere just as its own separate thing. But I don't know if the NBA would see that as like collusion in a deal, basically. Ryan Dunn's contract is too big, so Ryan Dunn can't be included in this as a trade target, but Oso has the minimum deal, which is why Oso would be somewhat interesting. So I think that that's what complicates this, is that the Suns only have one asset and they can't tear that asset into two in order to convince somebody to take Bradley Beal.
Yeah.
Like, you could theoretically try and protect it, like top half on one side, bottom half on the other side. But like, I don't think anybody's going to want that for a 2031 first rounder. So like that's what makes all of this incredibly difficult.
okay, let's say it takes that pick to get Bradley Beal to wherever. What are you sending to Miami? Like, what Miami's going to want something back? Like, who are the names that you're going to send back?
Otherwise, Miami can just play this until the offseason, where it becomes much easier to trade Jimmy Butler because he's on an expiring contract, and the other team is getting like a real player on an expiring contract with more flexibility because they have free agents that are like out in the ether or whatever. So like it's much easier to construct a trade at that point.
And I know people will say Jimmy can turn down his player option, become a free agent, go sign wherever he wants. Well, the problem is only one team actually has cap space. And unless he wants to go actually play for that one team, then it becomes a sign and trade and you end up in the same scenario. And like, I think I used to think that like the Pelicans didn't have much leverage with Brandon Ingram until I thought more about it. It's like they actually have more than what I thought for a guy that's going to be a free agent, because where is that guy going to, at the very least, you're going to get the sign and trade return in these scenarios. It seems like now maybe a team was able to move out all of their cap space somehow and open it up to bring in Jimmy Butler. Maybe that team is out there, but I haven't seen or heard anybody put that together. I'll be honest, Sam, I kind of wish they would have just got a better upgrade at center than Nick Richards and just rolled with this. Like, again, I realize it was the Pistons and, you know, they're 500, but Booker and Durant with Jones and Ryan Dunn,
they're so good.
It just made sense. And I realize Jones can end up being an issue defensively in the playoffs. He just does all the right things. He orchestrates the offense. He hits timely shots. Dunn is really good defensively. Took the, you know, the primary matchup on that end of the floor. Dog Cade up and down the court. You just have to live with, okay, Booker and Durant just are going to be better than hopefully your dudes. But I don't think I can believe that when your center rotation is Plumlee starting, Richards off the bench, rookie Oso, and Nurkic just floating around. So I guess I was like, what do you're not going to take that first round pick and trade for another center now, right? Like that doesn't make sense. So I just find myself wishing they would have, if you're going to go for it, take that first round pick with whatever and go get a much better upgrade. Bill off the bench, Grayson Allen off the bench, like Royce O'Neal off the bench. You got a little bit of depth there. The roster makes sense. You have some second unit scoring and all of that and see that, but they didn't do that at the center position. And now I find myself liking that trade less because I don't know if there's another move coming. Like I don't know what the other move is going to be.
Let's get to a quick little note from Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money action. There are over 10 million members. Like I said a second ago, they invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Prize Picks always puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. We are big fans of Prize Picks here. We absolutely love the app and what they're doing for the daily fantasy sports scene. Download the app today and use code Game Theory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use that code Game Theory to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Also, and that's kind of where I'm going with this. Like, say they can't do Jimmy Butler, right? Let's say that, like, for whatever reason, Miami's just like, we're not doing this. Like, we're not taking Bradley Beal back. There's no chance of that. We're not taking back, these other contracts from a third team. We can't find the expirings that we want, everything like that. Because at the end of the day, here's the other thing. Like, if Jimmy Butler does not pick up his player option, they're probably just fine with that, right? Like, then this is now like a $48 million expiring situation that allows them to have the flexibility they want long-term anyway. So they have more leverage here than what I think other people believe at the end of the day. Whether or not they're able to make that work, like for instance, for here we go. Jimmy to the Bucks is a idea that's been raised, right? Using the Middleton deal. Okay, so let's think this through. Why would Miami take Middleton back? Because like there's no reason to.
Because it's the opposite of what the Bulls conversation, right? It actually extends a contract instead of minimizes it, right?
Correct. Like there's no reason for them to take the Middleton deal back because they can just, have the flexibility in the expiring asset, right? Like maybe they get something other than Middleton that's like actually good that they really want, but I just don't know that I see what that is out on the marketplace currently.
I guess it would be the same. Middleton has I thought he had one more year. Middleton's same boat as Jimmy.
So here's the next thing. Maybe you could do something with a fourth team. Would Toronto be willing to take Chris Middleton? Like maybe you could pay Toronto to take Chris Middleton. Okay, who's paying Toronto to take the extra year on that contract for Bruce Brown and Chris Boucher's deal that you could send to Miami, right? I'll kind of put this all in like a trade machine thing in terms of what I'm talking about to like make the structure make sense if you're watching on YouTube. Another reason to watch on YouTube, by the way, because you'll get to see some of these things. But all of this is incredibly complicated for Phoenix. Like that's what makes this so hard. And that's what makes it so hard for Miami as well to structure this because they are incentivized really, in my opinion, to either get value now on Jimmy or to wait until the summer. There's just no reason for them to not do either of those things.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know we've talked about contracts being hard to move and then getting moved before. And, people find a way and it's like, oh, okay. Like, but this one is tough for me because of the assets. If Phoenix had picks, I would understand it a little bit more because then it could be, okay, we're sending a pick with Bill to the third team. That third team has expiring contracts they can send to Miami. Miami gets, all of these expirings plus a couple other picks or a young player, Oso, whoever it is from this. Phoenix just doesn't have those. Like the team we're discussing here as the main player for Jimmy does not have the assets to send in both directions. And so I don't understand. And like you said, where Miami has more leverage than I think what we sometimes think in this scenario to just hold on to Jimmy and then let this offseason play out. I don't think they are going to feel forced to do it for nothing, like for no asset in return or just expiring deals. Because it's like, okay, well, if we're just going to get expiring deals, we'll let Jimmy expire, or again, play it off to the summer. And then you get a sign and trade if he turns down his player options. So I don't know. It seems like it's really complicated. And as soon as you said fourth team, I'm like, oh, well, we're having to get there. Then it's,
yeah, like is Detroit going to be willing to take like assets for Pat Connaughton, and who are those assets coming from at that point, right? Yeah. Like there's just it's exceptionally complicated to get this done to Milwaukee for Jimmy. Maybe they can find a way. Maybe they can find a way for teams to like get assets that I'm not thinking about, but I'm somewhat skeptical of these things. Phoenix, to kind of close the loop on them, like the Nurkic thing, like is coming to a head. They have to figure out what they're going to do with Yusuf Nurkic. I don't know what that's going to be. Yusuf Nurkic has like $19.2 million left on his deal, and he was playing like a minimum player this year. Throughout the course of the season, he was really quite poor. He can't really finish around the basket anymore. Defensively, he's quite slow-footed in drop coverage. He's okay defensively when he's around the basket, but it's just really, really hard to make that work if you're a good team, really. In Phoenix, if they want somebody like Jimmy Butler, if they want like an upgrade player, they realistically probably can't attach that 2031 first. And by the way, they only now have 1 second round pick to trade because they moved 3 seconds for Nick Richards. That to me, I just don't see where this ends with Nurkic. Like I feel like he is probably stuck on that roster at the end of the day. And oh, by the way, they can't aggregate their money in their deals anyway. So they can't attach him as a throw-in to like a Bradley Beal deal, for instance, right? Because they're so far into the second apron. So they are in an incredibly complicated, messy situation here that I can't quite make work for anybody.
I think they should have went higher than Nick Richards and then just played it out from there. Like that's what I think is they should have like, hey, we've moved Bill to the bench. We're gonna rock and hope our two stars in Booker and Durant can lead us, but we're gonna do better than Mason Plumlee, Nick Richards, Oso trio at the center position. And they already made that move. So to me, they're a little bit locked into this. I won't be surprised if they try something because it seems like they're always, Ishbia is always gonna, want to push that. But that I think I'm sitting here today going, even if it took more seconds or if it took the first or whatever, go get a center that's a real quality starting center and then go with that group of Jones, Booker, Dunn, Durant, that guy, and then those backups.
Oh my God. This Shane Ritz, shout out to you on the YouTube chat, coming up with what might be the saddest trade I've seen in a long time, but also like solves a real problem for Phoenix here. Maybe there's some kind of Nurkic for Patrick Williams thing out there. Chicago cuts years off of Pat Will's contract and the Suns get Nurkic out of town for a playable forward.
Sure.
I mean,
sure.
Oh God.
So here's my thing. I just hope this happens because this is a great call from Shane. So this would be incredible.
And it works too because Nurkic gets like $100,000 more.
I put it in the spot track and it immediately said successful. It's clean.
That actually could be an answer to both of these situations. Huh.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about that one. Shane Ritz, good for you, man.
Yeah.
You've stumped me in a real way. That kind of solves problems for like each team, especially if the Bulls are planning on moving Vooch.
That's what I was gonna say. This only works if Chicago is truly like, trying to really cut down the years, get to salary cap space.
And to be clear, I 100% do this if I'm Chicago. Like, I am ecstatic to get off of the Pat Williams deal, which has 4 years left after this one.
Yeah.
For 1 year left? Are you kidding me?
I don't think it ultimately solves the Suns' problem, like main problem, but I mean, it gives you another rotation player, I guess. I mean, I don't. The Suns aren't getting a better like, even though I just crushed Patrick Williams, the Suns aren't getting
they're not getting a better player than Pat Williams for Nurkic.
Not straight up 1-to-1. Correct. So that would be, you're only getting that because you're solving the problem for Chicago of the years. Maybe. Great call, Shane.
That's insane. It's a really good call. That's a really interesting one that I kind of love. I kind of, that broke my brain a little bit. Good for you. Okay, Bryce. So the other thing I wanted to bring up with Phoenix, let's say that doesn't happen, right? And there's nowhere to put Nurkic. The only way for them to upgrade the roster, if they lose out on Jimmy and they lose out on like being able to move Nurkic for whatever, the only other way to upgrade the roster is to move one of Grayson Allen or Royce O'Neal. Yeah. At that point.
Yep. And then you're cutting into the wing depth. And Grayson has been big time floor spacing for them. Royce is a good, you're cutting the depth at one position to solve the issue at another position. And you already threw assets at that position. So.
Yeah. So that's where it becomes weird I'm still like blown away by the Pat Williams for Nurkic idea. It's a terrible idea for everybody involved, but I kind of love it. That's a great idea for Chicago. I shouldn't say that. It's a Chicago getting off of the Pat Williams deal with only 1 year left. Like, that would be incredible.